Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka 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 podcast.
Baka!
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a minisode of Baka Baka Baka. And this is a very special minisode in the fact that it is not very special because there is no topic, there is no subject we're talking about. Not even all the Bakas are here. Jason's here with me. I'm not even going to insult him, but he's here just out of friendship. If you're hearing this, something went wrong with our regularly scheduled broadcast, and this content is literally just so we have something to share. So it's still going to be anime related, but my name is Troy, and I'm just going to talk about Baka Baka Baka, the podcast, and how it started. Jason, you were actually the second person I asked to join. I asked Jeremy first because you and me had just recently got back in touch. We were like playing video games together again, and we kind of come back into each other's life. But the main reason I thought out this podcast was I asked Jeremy to watch Gurren Lagann. And because I had watched it and it blew my mind. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, Jeremy, you got to watch it. He watched the first season. He was like,
and I still haven't watched it.
I know. I forgive you.
I'm the worst.
I'd rather you have you not watch it than what, Jeremy didn't like it.
Well, you said that you had a pilot of this idea, but not anime related, right?
I had done I always come up with weird ideas like this podcast, and I had something else that it was called a Rich Geek, Poor Geek, and you reviewed video games. I was going to have one guy be the rich geek. He bought all the latest gadgets, latest video games. He would tell you which ones was worth it to you for your budget. And then another guy who would search bargain bins and used game stores for what can you get on the cheap that's really good, also for your budget. That didn't work out. Crash and burn. There was a Star Wars podcast that had a very similar format to this that I liked a lot, except for when they did the stories, the books from Star Wars, they didn't do very well covering the story. So they kind of bounced around a lot, and I didn't like that. And they also just ended it. There was no feedback. There was no discussion. And I was like, man, if this is a book club, I want to say something. And then, like I said, I asked Jeremy to watch Gurren Lagann. He didn't like it. I was like, I want to talk to people anime. And the same thing had happened with like Jeremy and me the other way. He's asked me to watch anime, and I've been like, yeah, that's not my thing. And I was like, it'd be really cool if we just had to.
Wait. So Jeremy didn't like Gurren Lagann.
Jeremy hates Gurren Lagann because it's too over the top and nonsensical, and there's no logic to the science and stuff. You know how he is.
Right, I can see that because I've seen some scenes, and it's like the mechs seem to perform better if the pilots feel stronger.
it is 1000% everything Jeremy hates. Like emotion wins the day. The lights on the dashboard can literally break out of the dashboard and go spiraling into the sky just because they can. And for me, it was like the best. I love Gurren Lagann.
So it's fully Kool-Aid for you, just mechs.
Yeah, well, I love Fully Cooley too.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get myself to watch it.
Yeah. I asked you to be on the show because, like I said, we had recently come back in contact with you, and I saw this as a 3-person show, and I needed someone to balance me and Jeremy's crazy. Cause I'm so emotion and Jeremy is so logic, and Jeremy's one of the smartest people I know, but his mindset is so different from mine, which works really well. But I was like, oh man, we need a balance. And you were comfortable with anime, but you didn't watch it like religiously. You hadn't seen every single anime. And what I love about what you bring to this podcast is how you can like say, look, I know it's anime, but it still needs to be held to the criteria of other media. Like, you have to tell a good story. You can't just say I'm anime and
Right.
so you get free passes.
Because that's one of your favorite things about anime is that you can tell and visually create these stories that you just can't do in live action. Or even like Pixar animation has a really tough time with some of the concepts.
And I think Japan has a better imagination than America sometimes. And
I'd agree with that.
Anime lets them express it in some of their best ways. And if you don't agree with me, that play any Kojima game and tell me that he doesn't have a better imagination than any American video game publisher. Do you remember, like, when I asked you to join, what you were thinking?
I do actually
think we'd be doing this for over a year.
So so a little bit without getting too personal. We grew up. Our moms loved to get together, and every time we got together, we had just a blast. I remember just about every single time I came over to your house. In fact, real quickly, I remember the one time that we were out in the yard playing, and everything went red. And
from the
I was just, what in the world? And we look up, and here's just smoke in the sky. Firefighters came. They made a stand at your house. You lost the barn, but that was it.
Yeah, I don't think that was our barn, or at least it was there before we got there. We never did anything with that barn. So
right. That was also the same house that I wrecked my shoulder. And I had that shoulder surgery, so it was pretty rad. But yeah, I reached out to you because not only was I looking for, to rebuild my social structure, but you're one of my favorite people in my family. And I'm also, because of how I grew up, family is more about the people you love and how you treat others, and less about blood bond, which is kind of the opposite of how my mom goes about life. But that's just a personal philosophy of mine. But anyways, I remember when you asked me about it, I was elated. Like, one, I've always wanted to do something on YouTube. I thought it would be video games because that's my passion.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm in. Oh, go ahead.
YouTube was actually your idea. We were just going to do an audio podcast, and you were like, "Let's do YouTube too." And I had been looking into like just recording voice stuff, and then luckily we found Google Hangouts, which is what we use to record our videos.
Yeah,
but yeah, YouTube was you. That was your idea, and I don't know. Well, thanks to the ghost stories, I think a lot of our audience came in thanks to the YouTube stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, I wanted to do something with YouTube. You pitched the idea to me, and I was like, you know what? I don't watch enough anime, and I love it. And I remember I had this really long stint for about 1.5 years where I was just like, every day was a new anime, and then I just gave it up for 3 or 4 years until we started the show, which I'm thankful for most of the time. And then there's other weeks where I drudge through an anime because Troy assigned his never.
What? Call me out like that. I can't believe that.
But yeah, I specifically remember being elated. And then we watched ReZero. And I remember you gave me the video to post. And my first thought was, what are we going to do about a thumbnail? Because I don't think it had crossed any of our minds. Like, what would it be? So I did Beatrice with the hair.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. I remember that. Yeah, because before that, the little logo that shows up at the beginning of our YouTube episodes with I put writing on both sides, and it's the what I call a UE face. And I was always like, I guess that'd be our thumbnail, but they all look so much the same. Nothing was distinct. And then you for ReZero, I remember the pigtails, but I can't remember if that was the first ReZero or the second ReZero.
It might have been the second. And that was the first time we got a decent amount of hits on a video. And when I say decent, I mean into the tens.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have dreams of stardom here.
Right, right. But we noticed a difference, and I had fun making the image.
Yeah, I always get excited every week to see what the image is going to be.
Yeah, so actually, that's been a good creative outlet for me as well. I'm really I was really happy when you let me do it, because I was like, even to this day, I know you tell us that, oh, it's all three of ours, but like I kind of treat it as your baby, and like I try to, I kind of have it in that respect, but that's kind of just like a mental thing for me.
Yeah, I can see where that comes from. I try not to be like, here's the decisions, but actually the thing that is, especially when you talk about the creative outlet, the thing I've found I love the most isn't the talking. I do not love the talking as much as I thought I would. I don't like hearing my own voice when I play these back. The producing, I love producing this podcast. I love coming up with ideas that, like when the 100th episode when we did the trivia stuff, I love that creativity this lets me have. And you guys let me you guys let me literally blindside you with trivia games or whatever I feel like doing. You guys are so great about that. But I have always felt like this is R3. I never wanted to be like, okay, I get to veto bad ideas though.
Which you do sometimes.
Not if both of you, if you and Jeremy like agree, like this is something we want to do, or this is something we want to watch, I'm like, okay, I'm in. I remember with Kisniver, I was like, okay, we might not like this. No, it wasn't Kisniver. It was Nambaka. We were like, is this going to be worth it? I'm like, okay, so here's how we'll set it up. If you guys don't want to keep watching after part 1, we will not watch part 2. And I totally put that in your guys' hands. I try to do that. It is tough though.
No, I hear you.
Because we don't have we don't have any hierarchy or anything. So, and I talk too much during the podcast. So.
Actually, I wonder if you talk enough, because I know Jeremy and I ramble.
But you're supposed to. That was always the point. I never wanted to be the rambler. I do like recapping stories. Like I kind of like that, so I did want to do that. But my intent was always you guys talking, because like I said, Jeremy, one of the smartest people I know, but mine and his brain almost never connect on the same wavelength. But growing up with you were always the most. You could communicate so well. You could walk up to anyone and talk to them. You could charm anyone, and your intelligence is right up there. You can go back and forth with Jeremy, whereas sometimes I don't feel like I can. I always felt like working as intended.
And it flows well, because I think there's a lot of things Jeremy and I agree on, and I think the things we disagree on, most of the time we might not change each other's minds, but we're able to communicate it in a way that we both get to see each other's point of view, and I really like that, because me personally, I'm a big philosophy geek, and I love discovering other people's points of view on just a vast number of topics. And so, especially when we start to clash on the same scene that we saw of a particular anime, and we can kind of go back and forth on what maybe the meaning was or what the writer intended. That's always a blast, because I like having those intellectual discussions, especially when it's a little headbutting.
It's always fun to see where everyone ends up by the time it's time for reviews, even at the start. Like, okay, I'm picking this anime, putting it out there. And do you feel a little bit of ownership for the animes you choose? Like, please be good. I'm putting you out there. I'm making everyone watch this. Please be great.
100%. It's one of the reasons I have a tough time actually coming up with new picks each week that I have to pick. But like, a good example of what you're talking about, though, is Planet With, right? Like, both Jeremy and I were coming into it with like 3s and maybe a 4, and just discussing it as a threesome and kind of you threw out this idea that maybe it was the writer's intention that you were supposed to think about these things, like that we all just kind of started putting those pieces together, like, you know what, there's a good possibility that is the case.
That's it kind of sucks because it was so recent. It's actually one of my favorite episodes, because we reached that next level with it. I know for me, the one thing I wish we had on this show was guests. Sometimes we've had one guest, and that's actually the guy I was going to do that other YouTube channel with, and I've always done crazy projects with him. He's always been game for it, and this is the one I didn't call him in for and ask for his help, and this is like the one that's lasted. And I've kind of always felt bad about it, but not literally his voice. I mean, like, I had always pictured that, especially if we got more popular, we could have a fourth voice every once in a while to mix things up, especially a female voice. I think that's really the big thing we're missing.
I would agree with that. And I was hoping at some point we would get one of your daughters on.
Yeah, me too. I almost always talk to them about the anime, at least bounce ideas off of them. But a lot of times I ask them about their viewpoints on stuff, and like if I'm going to make a comment that I know I'm going to make, I'm like, I think that would be received. What's your opinion on that? Jeremy brings in Tanya's opinion sometime too. His wife, she doesn't usually watch the anime. Like I know your wife doesn't, my wife doesn't. But he'll like make her sit down and watch a scene and make her give him an opinion. But that's about as close as we get to the female voice, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I actually tried to get Alicia to watch Evergarden because it was something I felt was right up her alley in my world, if you will.
No, yeah.
I tried showing her a couple scenes because of just how beautiful it's animated, and she just does not like animation.
Yeah. Cassie watches a few anime. She actually likes Seven Deadly Sins. She used to watch a lot more when we were younger and she had more time. Now she's pretty picky. But yeah, I hear you on that. It sucks when you come across an anime and you're like, oh my gosh, this would fit perfectly in this person's wheelhouse. But because it was drawn in Japan, it's such a hard selling point.
Yeah.
Psychopaths, there's so many people that would like Psychopaths if they gave it a chance. But how do you get them past that Japanese animation? I know it's a cartoon, but this is a really hard sci-fi noir thriller, like with a mystery, and so many anime I watch, I'm like, this was just on NBC with live actors, so many people would love this. Made in Abyss, who was gonna not like Made in Abyss? But that art style, how do you sell it?
Right. No, 100%. Because what was it? We got a couple anime that are just, you talk about them just with words, and there's such a hard sell. Like, even non-Baka, if you think about it, it's like, okay, no, listen. There's this prison with flamboyant, straight prisoners that break out every day. Okay, yeah, no, I'm not watching that. No, come on, no, listen, it gets better. They have near superpowers.
What's funny is, because we've been watching anime so long, when I hear that stuff, I'm like, go on.
Right?
Like Planet Whip. It's a boy with amnesia, and he has a cat man and a maid in his house. Go on. You have my interest. Right. But you try to turn that around and sell it to someone who doesn't watch anime on the regular. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kingdom Hearts is right in your wheelhouse, but try and sell that to someone that doesn't play video games.
See, that's why you were such an important piece to this. And I had no idea if you would say yes or no. Like Jeremy was like, I think I can talk him into it. He was moving at the time. I was like, I think I can get him at least to try. And he was actually the harder sell because he gets shy in front of the microphone. He does a great job. I don't think you can really tell, but he hates improv. He's made
Oh,
that
100%.
very clear.
100%.
And he was a little shy at first. So he was actually the harder sell. I didn't know if I was going to get you, but it was like, man, I'm so emotion driven. Jeremy's so logic driven. We're never going to see eye to eye. I need someone who can communicate on Jeremy's wavelength
and see the emotional side.
Yeah. Don't take these compliments to heart. I'm still going to insult you in the next episode.
I 100% expect it.
You know, that's actually been one of my favorite things about this podcast. Behind the curtains, I wasn't sure if I did it to Jeremy. I wasn't sure how I would do it, and I actually love what I do to Jeremy just as much because I always try to make it like as uncomfortably familiar as possible. Like, I love Jeremy, and then I just try to make him uncomfortable in his own way, and then turn it around. And I'm saying horrible things about you, but you're so you weren't supposed to be here for this, and I was hoping you'd never hear this, but you're so good at rolling with it about taking the insult and giving back and giving it back to me. And it's made this really fun rivalry in jokingly.
I look forward to it every week.
Yeah, it's we've always had that too. I remember when I saw you like the first time in 10 years, we walked into a room and we started making jokes together, and it was like no time had passed. Like, oh, that's right. When it comes to joking and our sense of humor, we are compatible.
No, it's funny because we were sitting on the stairs. My wife still has a picture of it. She after you guys left, she was like, I was wondering if this is your brother. You guys look so much alike. You guys joke and talk exactly the same.
Like I said, you do it so well, and I'm just surprised I've been able to come up with anything this many times.
I was wondering, I'm like, with some of them, I'm like, he spent so much more time thinking about the one for me than he did Jeremy.
I honestly always come up with Jeremy's first. I do.
Yep.
Almost always. Okay.
Because then you can riff on that and go, okay, how can I make this one?
Yeah. I find I try to make it thematic to the anime or the subject if I can. I almost never come up with one for the minisode. I always forget. The anime is the important one. It almost always takes place in the shower I take before the podcast. I hunker down. I get into thinking position.
I like getting this insight into the pre-show,
behind the scenes, and then I have to remember it like after dinner, and then I finally come back to the computer and the notebook and the notes and write it down. I do really appreciate you being on the show and Jeremy, but the ones I really appreciate is your family, Jeremy's family, my family.
Yes.
My family gives up the living room every 2 weeks.
Actually, the look on your face every time your dogs go off is brilliant.
I have no dogs. Every member in this household has a dog except me, and I have to survive all these dogs and these cats, and now there's 2 birds and multiple fish. My family loves pets, and
I would guess
I that is not me. And not because I don't love pets. I actually do love animals. I am an irresponsible oaf, and I always feel the animals deserve better than me, and they deserve my family who goes out of their way to take care of them.
But not during your show, because sometimes you have to take care of them.
Gosh. So many times I've thought about trying to build the studio in the bedroom, or the teenagers might move out soon though. They're almost that age.
Almost college.
A couple extra rooms opening up in this house.
Right.
See what happens.
Dad, do you miss us? Not at all. I mean, of course, honey.
So yeah, that's the history. Slightly copying a Star Wars podcast. Strong arming my 2 buddy cousins into helping me, and I thought for sure one of us would have quit by now, but I think we all enjoy showing up so much we just keep going. Even on the weeks that it's rough, there are weeks where you're like, oh God, okay. I always
been plenty of weeks where Just coming home, I'm just like, I do not want to do this week. Like, I'm going to be 100% honest with this last anime we did, which I don't know when this or if this will ever go up, but we just got done with the first season of Tokyo Ghoul. I watched the last episode an hour and a half before we started filming.
I was really behind on Tokyo Ghoul too. It was like 4 episodes a day the past 3 days trying to get it. And I don't like to do that. I like to my format is like 2 episodes a day over 2 weeks.
Yeah, because you take notes.
Because I take notes. But I also like to soak it in. I like to think about, okay, those 2 episodes changed my score. How did I feel about what I just saw? I enjoy the slow pace, but sometimes you just gotta cram. You just gotta go.
go. And I owe you Solo, which I rented, and I just haven't watched it yet.
I hope this airs like 2 years from now, and you still haven't watched Solo. All right, I think we're good. If this ever airs, we'll probably have one of the other Bakas, and maybe someone else can sit in with them. Could be me. Do this. I think this was cool. Just talking about stuff and picking a random topic. I wanted to talk about the podcast because no one ever asks, "What's wrong with you, listeners? Don't you care about us? You just care about what we bring to you." It's been we've gone a while now, and I think back to how we got started, and it's like I can't believe that kind of has worked.
Well, I do want to say one thing before we wrap up. I 100% appreciate our listeners. Their feedback has been some of the most insightful feedback that I've gotten about anime, because majority of the time my misunderstandings are either cleared up or I get really cool insight from manga that I just don't have time to read.
We've made jokes about it, but honestly, some of the most excited we've got is when people are like, in the manga this happened, or this is what was actually happening in that scene. We get those, or I get those. They show up on my phone. I read through them. I copy and paste them to you guys. Like, guys, look what they said. This is amazing. Especially when it's like an anime we just watched, because we're all a little hyped about after talking about it. Stuff's on our brain. We get those comments, and things are great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
really appreciate the listeners.
The listener, and that was always working as intended. I wanted the listeners to have a place to talk about this stuff. It's almost better we're not big, because then we don't really get trolls or anything bad like that. Because I just wanted people to be able to share their anime knowledge together and opinions. I love that.
I agree.
All right. Well, you'll have to go back to our last episode to see what we are going to be watching next. Our Twitter is still at Baka Podcast. Our email is theanimebakaclub@gmail.com. You can leave a comment on whatever episode you find, wherever you found it, and it will get back to us. Like Jason said, thank you, listening audience. This works because of you. I believe that. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, and we look forward to every comment. So if you have something to say, please send it our way.
And pretend I never said anything nice about Jason. Don't tell anybody.
Let's keep it under wraps.
All right. Sayonara.